All right, guys. So I have the task of doing a pretty difficult football fundamentals because it's so much information to jam into what's going to be a short video. But we won't try to cover the basics of defensive line gaps and techniques. So basically just telling you what the gaps are, where the techniques are, and what their basic roles are. Not going to get too deep and heavy into this because this is truly a subject that you will spend a lot of time studying. At the Scouting Academy, defensive line is an entire module, and a lot of that is learning. What is the role of a three tech, and how do they succeed in their job? What's the difference between a two gapping nose and a one gapping, nose tackle? Completely different roles. What's a 3-4 Okie and what's a 3-4 Eagle? What's a 4-3 over and under? All of this is just things that you learn, and it's complicated. But we're going over the basics to give you a better understanding of what things are and how things are in this league. I want to go ahead and throw a shout out, though. And I don't actually know this man, so hopefully it's okay to do the shout out. But Matt Bowen, and I love giving credit to different writers and people who put out articles and things like that. Well, Matt Bowen has some NFL 101 stuff that he did a few years ago for Bleacher Report. For those who don't know who Matt Bowen is, he's a former player in the league, knows his stuff. He's coaching, I think, high school ball now. And one of the Canal Street Chronicles former writers, Adam Williamson, I believe did an internship with him. But anyway, he has two great articles called NFL 101, the basics of the 4-3 defensive front and the 3-4 defensive front. And a lot of the information that, we can learn and talk about, you can actually find in these articles. I want to make sure I shout these out because this is a great resource. It goes over the gaps, technique assignments, and the basics of what we're about to talk about. But anyway, let me just throw up some film real quick because I'm going to just be doing a lot of drawing on the screen. So we've got the New Orleans Saints versus the Detroit Lions. And the first thing I want to throw up here is this fancy little doodad picture that I need to actually put in center so it makes sense a little bit better. Where can I put it so you can see the numbers? All right, you can see it a little bit better there. So what you basically have from a number standpoint, you see you have all these different numbers. And you can even see by this little gadget picture thing that I have that it's all over the place. It's hard to understand, and I want to remove it for the moment. So you have a numbering system and a lettering system. The letters are simple. So right here, that's A gap. This is B gap, C gap, A gap, B gap, C gap, D gap. So the gaps are pretty simple. It's cut and dry. From the center, every space you move out in between individuals is a gap. So like right now, David Onyemata here for the New Orleans Saints is inside the A gap. And this would be the weak side A gap. Why is it the weak side? Well, strong side is determined by this right here. See how there's more blockers on one side than the other? So that's your strong side. So he's right now on the back side of the weak side A gap. We're not going to get too much into that. But so now the lettering system is really simple. So if you ever hear somebody, well, he's a nose tackle. Well, nose tackles typically play the A gaps, regardless of if they're a one gapping or two gapping. And let's just go ahead and hit that. What's a one gap versus a two gap? Context clues, baby, just how it sounds. One gap means they have one gap responsibility, whereas if you were two gapping, and we'll see a zero technique, but two gapping is if you're, and this is just in this instance, a nose tackle right up over the center, he's got to guard this one, and he's got to guard that one. That would be a nose tackle who is two gapping. And you'll see various fronts in the NFL will run that. But anyway, those are the basics letter-wise. So let's go back to one more time. So A, B, C. And outside here where you have the tight end, just the outside, that's your D gap, way out here in the universe of wherever the heck that is. Now let's talk about the numbering system. And I think this is the more confusing part for most people. So I'm going to put this little graphic up. I know it's not the easiest to see. Let me see if I can throw up a little bit of a background maybe to it, make it a little bit easier to see, and I can't. So we'll just deal with that. But let's start with the positives. I'll make it where you can read the positive numbers first. So you see where I have it right over the top of them. So anything that's head up on something, and it can be a little bit different here or there, but generally 0, head up of the center. 2, head up of the guard. 4, head up of the tackle. 6, head up of the tight end. So we're talking right on top of each other And we don't have that in this particular scenario, but that gives you an idea of what they are. So that's the numbering system. Now let's go up to the other side of the numbers. And this is where it gets a little bit confusing because there's not like the pattern's not the same. So it doesn't go from being odd numbers and even numbers. So just because it's not head up does not mean it's now an odd. So as you can see right here by the numbers, this would be a 1 technique, which is what you have David Onyemata in. He's on the inside of the center. Now if he was on the guard side, that would be a 2I. 2 inside. That's what the I is for. Now let's move over to the other side where we've got Sheldon Rankins. So that is going to be a 3. See right there on the screen right above? It's a 3. Let's wipe on that out. Now if he was slid a bit of it over, that would be the 4I. So over here we had 1 and 2I. And there you have 3 and 4I. Let's go ahead and wipe all those out. Now as you continue to move outside more and more, so let's say we're over here at the right tackle, we're outside the right tackle. That's our 5 technique. Cameron Jordan, the Saints' best pass rusher, is out wide right here, outside of the tight end. This is called a wide 9. Wide 9. He's all the way the heck out there. And for those wondering where it happened to 8, who knows? No idea. We're not going over 8. There is no 8. Just forget 8 exists. The number 8 is gone. It's dead. It's dead to us. So now you get a basic idea of these formations. So right now, just talk about what we've got. 1. We've got a 1 technique right here. That's what David Onyemata is playing. He's 1 gapping here, and he's a 1 tech. So over on the other side, we got a 3 technique. Sheldon Rankins. Over here, wide 9. That's Cameron Jordan. And on the other side, outside of your other tackle, is a 5, right on the outside. Simple enough, right? Nothing terribly complicated there. Nothing, just, oh my goodness, my mind's blown. I can't handle it. What's going on? So now let's talk about what these responsibilities are and what you typically find in these type of players who are in these particular techniques. So what you find with a 1 tech, if you ever hear the term defensive tackle and nose tackle, a lot of times they get used interchangeably. I don't like to do that. I like to separate them based on what they're doing. So right now, Onyemata's playing a nose tackle spot. What do I determine as a nose tackle? I stick my nose tackles inside. They're the ones who stay in the A gap, whether they're in a 3-4 or a 4-3. They're nose tackles because they're right on the nose of the center, right there. And I don't care if they're in a 3-man alignment in a 0 technique or they're in a 1 technique. Those are my noses. Because a defensive tackle, your 3 technique is typically a much different role. So right here, you've got Sheldon Rankins, and your typical 3 technique is a pass rusher. It's not just a pure run defender. So, and there was a time when the NFL where it was more run heavy. Both your defensive tackles were all worried about stopping the run. But it hasn't been that way for quite a while. And if you go back and think about Saints history, Leroy Glover and Norman Hand. So 2 completely different guys doing completely 2 different jobs. And while you can have guys that can do multiple things, like David Onyemata here, who's playing a 1, he'll also play a 3. Anyway, let's look at this play happen. Man, time flies when you're going through this. Like I said, it's a lot of information you're trying to condense. All right, so you see right there, Cameron Jordan does a good job containing the outside, and that's his responsibility as a wide 9 against the run. He's got to play containment. So anytime you're the outside guy, you're more worried about containing than you are just jutting down the field because you want to be able to prevent the end arounds and reverses and things like that. And the Lions are going to block this. You got 2 double teams. You're going to double team the 1 and you're double teaming the 3. Sheldon Rankins is able to split right here. And what you want to be able to allow your linebackers to do, and this goes back, and I'll go ahead and throw it up there, to the Matt Bowen article. Whoops, let me turn that off. And you're letting your linebackers scrape. Now, I know that might sound like an odd term, but basically all that means is you're giving them the opportunity to flow and read the plays without actually having to engage the offensive players and the offensive blockers. Very basic. So we're not getting too much deep in that because linebackers have an entire system on their own. Now let's get back to watching this play. Hand off. You see right there, we engage. So what you had here is what forces this guy outside is your linebacker is going to come fill in the open gap. So now that's telling the running back, I've got to bounce it and hope I've got the blockers outside to where I can reach the edge. The Saints do a good job here of filling all of their gaps. Cameron Jordan does a great job of winning the edge. And then you got Von Bell and Ken Crawley there securing the outside. So that was everybody having what we call gap integrity. Now, this is a different play. This is a pass rushing play. Let's go ahead and get it to the way that you can see it. All right, so I told you guys that we would see a 0, and here you have one. So this is in a passing play. Sheldon Rankins lined up as a 0 technique. And then you see right here we've got Cameron Jordan here. And then should be Okafor's big old booty up in the air right there, playing on the outside of the tackles. Now this is a delayed blitz. Just a good job by Cameron Jordan being stronger than the next guy. And let's look at that bull rush just a little bit. Absolutely great technique. Gets inside leverage and just picks him up and runs him on down. And then you'll notice here is, even though we're 0, he's actually switching gaps. He's going to the B gap on the right, on his right side. That way AJ Klein, and this is it's almost like a twist here, but they got a linebacker running it. But there's basically just switching assignments to try to cause confusion. All right. Anyway, we got to keep moving because I'm not trying to get stuck on all that. Keep it on moving. Keep it on moving. Keep it on moving. All right, so now you have a pretty basic alignment. This is, like I said, it's standard. Here's your 3. Here's your 1. Here's your 9. And then back over here. And you see the space, this amount of space? You can classify this as a 7. This is a really weird looking 7. So let's go. And the 7 simply would be the inside of where the tight end is. You can even argue he's a little bit farther out than that. But regardless, the idea is the same. So on this play, you're going to see Tyler Davison, Sheldon Rankins, Cameron Jordan, and Okafor. And you can see their assignments as they rush in. Oh, nice little screenplay. Well, a quick pass. Sheldon Rankins is eating the double team right here, and this helped out Cameron Jordan a good bit. Love Cameron getting his hands up there to deflect this pass. And this is a game he had like 9 deflections. It was insane. But basics are all there. And this actually looks like an RPO. Looks like they're running an RPO here, but we're not going to sit there and look at it too much. I'm going to get to another play because we're 13 minutes in. I want to wrap this up. I just want to show you guys all the different techniques that at least the Saints ran. And because they use primarily a 4-man front, you're not going to see a lot of things that you normally would, like 4-eye and 0. So if you had a 0 and 2 4-eyes, that's typical of a 4-3 front called an eagle front. But anyway, we're not going to see that today. Roll the film. Here we go. Another deflection. Oh, I remember that one. That was almost an interception. So let me go back here. I know this hasn't been the most exciting of videos that we normally do, and that's fine. And so I wanted it to be an education, just learning gaps and techniques, the very basics of it. So in general, your 0 and 1 gapping players, their role, run stopping. 3 techniques, typically they're pass rushers. And then here's where it gets a little bit different. 4 and 5s, a lot of times you'll see those in 3-man fronts, and they also can be used as pass rushers and run stoppers. Because in a 3-man front, you put a little bit more emphasis on stopping the run with your linemen and a little bit more emphasis on rushing the passers, typically with your linebackers. But this varies based on who you have. And, there's plenty of 5 techniques and 4 techniques and all this other stuff who are completely A-okay with rushing the passer in a 3-man front. And then you get to anything usually from the 7 and out area or pure pass rushers. It's generally a position of power that you're rushing from as a pass rusher to do what we've talked about before called running the arc. And you can use several things. You can actually come inside. You can run tackle in twist. You can run into tackle, which is basically where you're flipping gaps and flipping assignments and almost making an X pattern as one goes inside and one goes over the top just to confuse defenses. But remember the simple stuff. A gap, B gap, C gap, D gap. All basic. So move from the center out. You got an A gap between the center and guard, B gap between the guard and tackle, C gap between tackle and tight end, and then outside of that is the D gap if there is a tight end. If there's not a tight end, the C gap basically goes all the way to the sideline. Techniques, like I said, It works 0 through 9, and wide 9s, 7s, things like that. That's all around the tight end. 0 and 1 is around the center. 2s and 3s are at the guard, and then 4s, 5s, and 6 and all that is at the tackle. So you kind of get an idea of where all that is and the basics of what they're doing. We'll need to go into more depth on another video to dive into this, because we can spend an hour talking about the role of a wide 9 and how they rush the passer and different ways they rush the passer and different assignments they have containing the run, because sometimes they have a 2 gap that they might have to do as a 7 or something, or as a 5 or a 6, depending on whatever they're being asked to do on that play. But long-winded video, hopefully answered a few questions. Please, because this is a very complicated process, I'm trying to jam into a 15-minute video. Ask questions below. Hope you enjoyed the video. Who dat? God bless. Like, subscribe, share, all those fancy things. See you on the next one.